Hey, welcome to Mysterious Goings On. It's me, Alex Greenwood. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying this season. I am. I'm talking to so many interesting people, not just inflicting my monologues on you this season. I'm trying to bring in more people involved in the creative arts, in my opinion, the creative field. I'm talking, as you know, we've spoken to or going to speak to people who have been broadcast personalities, actors, dancers, innovators in lots of spaces. And I was thinking about this, and I kept thinking, geez, I want to just kind of open my Rolodex to people I know. And I thought, oh my God, staring me in the face is a guy who has been a friend of mine for well over 30 years. Oy. And what's interesting about him is he designs things that you don't see. Now, let me explain. You see them all the time, and they generally make your dining experience wherever you might eat at most, especially most national chains or regional chains, but some mom and pops. He designs things that makes the dining experience and the quality of the food better. And we're going to talk to Brian Hutton about that right now. Brian, welcome to Mysterious Goings On.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Did I phrase that correctly?
Yeah. I develop products for restaurants, both commercial restaurants. So you've mentioned the chains, and independent restaurants. You'll call them mom and pops, but independent restaurants. But also in the non-commercial space, places like colleges and universities, the military. Secondary education, primary education, all those places, anywhere where food is being served, I'm trying to develop products to make the food look better, taste better, be safer, and I go from there.
So is the company that you work for, can we talk about that?
Sure.
Who do you work for? Tell me about them. That might help us.
So it's a company called Tablecraft Products Company. And let me back up. I've been in this space developing products for about 20 years now. The company I work for now is Tablecraft Products Company. They are a family-owned manufacturer and importer of products for food service. They're best known for some innocuous products that are crucial to the operation of a lot of fast food restaurants. Things like plastic baskets for sandwiches and French fries. Squeeze bottles is another core category. So all the many of the squeeze dispensers that you see that are dispensing ketchup, mustard, on your sandwich prep tables, as well as the ones that you might see at a red thing on the table at a diner. That's us.
But you can also use those, and I've seen this, famous chefs use those to create little designs on the plate. And
sure, yeah, absolutely. And there's for decorating and for sauces. We have a high heat version that can sit in warm water. So if you're doing a caramel or a chocolate decoration on top of a dessert, it does.
It's funny because I saw on one of my shows, a cooking show, the chef used the squeeze bottle and then he took a toothpick and ran through it and
make it decoration. So you eat much with your eyes as you do your mouth. So that visual appearance, that's where a lot of the chef's creativity comes into play, and that's one of the spaces that I do a lot of product development.
Well, let's take a step back, because there's a lot of products that I know you've worked on and I've seen up close, and I will tell everybody, you cannot go to dinner, lunch, breakfast with this guy and not have him almost, especially if he doesn't know, gleefully pick up the plate without spilling any of it, just to look to see who made it.
Checking brands. That's kind of an industry-wide thing. Being in the industry for 20 years, oftentimes just by looking at a product, I know who made it, and just appreciate how products are kind of arranged and created on it.
I was having a family dinner at a restaurant, and I just took a picture of it because I was really like, this is really good. And you wrote back, oh, that basket, that's ours.
Yes.
And I just laughed, and everybody at the table, I said, it's Brian again. And everybody knew, you know. But so let's take a step back, though. You have been doing this for quite some time. Now, I understand you have a master's degree in advertising from Northwestern. Is that correct?
It's in, yes.
Essentially.
Master, yes.
And you have done this work, as you said, for quite some time now. Did you see yourself back when you were getting that master's degree doing this?
No. I mean, honestly, when I was going through, I had anticipated one of two paths. One was agency work, so working at a traditional. I was in the Chicago area, so we were going to all the big agencies that were managing the beer accounts and the big department store and the big food manufacturers were all in the Chicago area. Some of those have kind of branched out since then, but that was path one. Path two was I thought I was going to get into teaching at the college level. So, but neither one of those, I had no idea that I was going to get into product development or anything that technical.
Well, and we knew each other in college at bachelor's degree days, and you always were very creative. You like to draw, and you like to spin ideas, and your mind works in a way that's unlike most people I know. You find connections that most people don't. It seems to be a feature of your, not a bug, a feature of your brain that I've always admired. And and to a degree, I have a similar skill, but it's not the exact same way. Mine's more with words. Yours is more with concepts, it seems.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And it's actually served me very well on the product development side, obviously, is finding maybe a dissimilar product in a completely unrelated industry and finding ways to interpret or use that technology to help the industry I'm in.
So how and I want to get into the creative side of it again in a moment, but how crucial is product development in this industry? Can it make or break a restaurant?
Yes, yes, certainly. And most people will focus on, I'll use an industry term, center of plate. So most chefs traditionally are focused on the food presentation. However, because the visual piece of it is critical to the success of that restaurant, then it's as important as the food. And I think I relayed an example to you previously, which is a burger and fries in wrapped in paper is going to be one price. Call it that's a $7 meal. If you take it out of the paper, put it in a plastic basket, it's a $9 or $10 meal. You take it out of the plastic basket and you put it on a wood serving board with a stainless, the fries in a stainless steel. It's now a $13 or $14 meal, and then you put it on a high-end porcelain or china plate, and it could be a $20 meal. So just by how it could be virtually the same food cost, but by changing the presentation, you really define what you are as a restaurant, from a simple fast food to a high-end full service type.
Is that so? When you keep the hot side hot and the cold side cool, like McDonald's did with what was that? The
Arch Deluxe?
Was that the Arch? Something like that.
Yeah.
And, no, it was the McDLT, wasn't it? Yeah, that's so fascinating, because if you go to a higher end burger place like Red Robin,
sure, yes.
Which, and with Fuddruckers is different though, I think. I don't know if they serve it the same, because you're building your own at Fuddruckers, I think so. But let's think about Red Robin. They seem to have the higher end serving, like you're talking about. The food comes out, it's a burger,
right?
But it's a gourmet deluxe, incredible burger, and I think that It's funny, I hadn't thought of this. So if I were to have a Red Robin burger served wrapped in a piece of paper, it'd still be tasty, but I would think twice about spending $15 on it.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. It's all about it's about presentation.
Yeah.
So that's one line of products. The other is a huge focus and huge concern in the industry is food safety. So I develop a lot of products around food safety. So that's in the back of the house, in the kitchen, how to keep the knife or cutting board that you use for raw meats from being mixed with the same cutting board that's being used for strawberries or lettuce.
That's why they color code a lot of the
exactly.
Right?
So the whole concept of color coding and food segregation and what they call HACCP, which is an acronym for hazard analysis and critical control points. You identify these areas that are hazards, where the most mistakes happen, and you try to find ways to either completely avoid or mitigate those risks.
So you invented that?
I did not.
I was going to say, it's like that Albert Brooks movie, Defending Your Life, and he goes, what did he say? The guy he met up in heaven or wherever they're going, he said, I invented, what did he say, totally nude? Yeah. You remember that? He's like, that was me.
That was me.
Yeah.
Before that, they were all just nude.
Nude, and it didn't go anywhere, but I added totally. So you're rather accomplished, and I know this partially because I vacationed with you. And let me just explain.
See my products.
So we were at a resort in Jamaica, our families together, and I don't remember exactly the circumstances, but we saw a cart that you had designed for a previous employer, I believe, and you said, that's one of mine. And so, of course, me being obnoxious, I go over to the lady who works there and said, do you like this cart? He said, oh, yes, it makes my job so much easier. I said, you're looking at the guy who invented it right here, and I'm pointing it, and Brian's all like, embarrassed, but
I was part of a team.
Yeah, that's what the first thing he says, of course. But it was so funny. It was just so interesting because she legit said this thing really did. And what I admired about, because I look at the cart, and I know a little bit about your industry. I've dabbled a little. I've worked with some companies, as you know, and that you actually got me in the door with, and I learned a lot about. But there's also something that we're not talking about yet either, which is beyond food service and safety, and beyond making the consumer appreciate the food in a different light. There is also just the ergonomics and the convenience to help staffers who use it, where they're not backbreakers all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that you've designed. So it's not just that. I mean, you've actually helped design products that help staff do a better job because they're not constantly struggling with physical limitations because of the.
Sure. Yeah. Improving efficiency is important. I always think, as a person running a restaurant, the last thing they want to think about is a product, an equipment and supply product. They have so many other worries. So they have insurance worries, they have staffing worries, they have food cost worries, they have food waste worries. The last thing they want to think about is a basket or a tray or a tumbler or a cutting board. So I think one of my key roles is making something function well and make their jobs easier to do. So I always try and keep that in the back of my head when developing products.
Let's talk a little bit about your process. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to use an example of one of your most celebrated designs and successes. We were talking about burgers earlier.
Yes.
You created the Better Burger.
Better Burger collection.
Well, and I'm asking you online here, so if it's not cool, we'll edit this. But I mean, can we use a picture of that
Sure, I think so.
Just so people can understand what you're doing here.
Yeah.
But if you would, though, go ahead and let's assume we have a photo of it in the show notes.
Okay.
What is it? And tell them what it is first, if you don't mind. I don't mean to tell you how to do the interview, but just so we can get our mind around it. Tell us what it is first, and then if you don't mind, I'd love to hear your process. How did you come up with this?
Okay, so the Better Burger collection is the industry has been upscaling fast food for close to a decade now. What was traditionally, my generation was very comfortable going to a fast food restaurant, but you wanted to go out on a nice night out, you would go to a casual theme restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
So fast food, think of plastic tray, disposable packaging,
McDonald's,
counter service.
Yeah.
And then casual theme was sit down restaurant. Staff would wait on you at as you sat there,
like an Applebee's or a Chili's.
Chili's,
Red Robin.
Red Robin.
Yeah.
Sandwiched in between there has evolved what is known as fast casual, and that is sometimes usually counter service, but it's a higher quality of food than traditional fast food, and so this is a kind of an emerging area.
Is that Five Guys, or are they still considered the more casual or the fast food?
That's another little niche called Better Burgers or so it's basically the top end of fast food.
Okay.
So I would think something like Payway, if you've ever eaten at
sure.
Payway.
Yeah.
Many would consider Chipotle in that same realm. So higher quality ingredients, usually either order at the counter and then go sit down, or you're sitting down. But there's this area has evolved over time. It's kind of just a sub-segment between the true fast food and casual theme restaurants. So you get to a little bit lower price point, but a higher quality food.
Okay, so, and also I have been reading a lot about how fast food is really sinking with market share. People aren't buying it like they used to. So there's this pressure, right, on is there a pressure to kind of glam up everything?
I think there's some of the expectations, food expectations have risen. I think the next generation, I believe, has become more adventurous. So though consistency is important, variety is very important. And then we could get into a whole separate discussion about convenience, delivery, and those type of things, which I think are having a negative impact on fast food. If you can call an Uber Eats and have a nice meal delivered to you, and it be affordably priced, then.
So and it's nothing against fast food. We all love fast food, but a delivery. When I think delivery, I don't think get me a Big Mac, because, and I mean this is no disrespect to McDonald's, but if you don't consume a Big Mac relatively quickly, in my opinion,
fries, keeping the fries.
Is that what it is? Really, it's the fries.
Yeah, I think a hamburger, you could probably make it 8 or 10 minutes, but
the fries
they don't transport.
So I interrupted you, and I apologize. So we were talking about how you got to the Better Burger. Sorry.
Okay, so with burgers upscaling, you mentioned Red Robin, people raising their expectations. In my mind, I wanted to combine the familiarity of disposable packaging with reusables, with something on the tabletop. So create a little bit of whimsy and familiarity while still having something in a durable package. And so the concept was take the style of things, French fry box, the French fry trays or deli trays, an open burger box, and interpret those in a reusable, dishwasher safe, durable thing. Heavy duty stainless steel or melamine. I use melamine a lot.
Right.
And so it created this range of products that was unique in yet familiar.
Yeah.
And it's had won some awards and has had really good reception within the industry.
So, and this would be definitely a product that could take your $7 burger and fries and make it into a double that or more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's also on the whimsical side, I created a spatula slider server.
Yeah.
So it looks like a spatula,
right?
But it has raised edges to keep all the juices and stuff in there, and you can fit 3 sliders on there easily, and you can present it to the table. Now, there's another added feature to that from my perspective, which is people there's a growth of paddle flights and serving things with handles, because one of the biggest things I am annoyed by when I go to a restaurant is if a server hands you some food and their thumb is somewhere in your food.
In the plate somewhere.
In the plate,
oh,
in
yeah.
the soup bowl, because they're grabbing it and trying to present it. So there's a food safety and just a better presentation if their hand is away from direct contact with your food.
That's a great point. And so when did Better Burger come out? 2 years ago? A year ago?
It's a year now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we don't have to say who, but it's being picked up and it's being used. So you might see it at a restaurant. And again, hopefully we'll have a picture of this in the show notes and you can see it. And if you see one, you don't even have to lift it up and look under it. You'll just know that it's a table craft, but it's designed by Brian Hutton. Brian, let me ask you how that works, though. Mm-hmm. Do you sit there at your office and the boss comes in and says, "Hey, Hutton, we need something to serve sliders on"? Is that how it works? Or do you listen to voice of the customer? Is that what you're doing? Tell us how that works.
All of the above. So our development process, we develop as a company a large number of products per year. There is a product development funnel that looks at the categories in which the company develops and makes sure that those are all being filled and addressed, that there are new products for each of those categories. And occasionally from sales or from management, they will see something or see a need and will relay that. I also spend some time in the field, try to visit with operators, observe operators to see if I can observe a need. In my mind, if a person asks you for a specific product, it's probably too late. That means that everyone else has probably heard about it and is developing it. But if you see a need and can develop a product that fills that need, that's when you are maybe truly innovate.
Do you ever sit down in a restaurant and come up with an idea right there? Because it's like, oh my gosh,
Sure.
There's got to be a better way than this. I mean, you already mentioned the thumb and the food, but
sketching on a napkin.
I've seen you do that.
That's part of the creative process. So I mean, for my process, the first thing for me is to know my playground. Mm-hmm. So know what the company that I work for, what are they known for?
What are their sweet spot?
Where do we have permission to sell? And what are we good at? So I could go to Asia, I could go overseas and find a manufacturer to make or a source for anything. If I wanted to start selling refrigerators, I can go find a refrigerator manufacturer and start doing that. The problem is it probably wouldn't sell because this company is not known for those things.
People aren't going to go. They're going to go to Blodgett or whoever, the big restaurant.
Exactly.
People.
So developing within our space is the first thing. Second is observing. So observing, listening, those are far more important, both seeing what the competition is doing, but also seeing what things are happening in the industry, what trends are out there, and talking to customers.
Okay, you have this fantastic idea, and you get the green light from the boss and whomever and sales, right? Because sales has to buy in, right? I assume if they say, "Look, man, we can't sell this. It's a cool idea," right? But so can they shoot you down?
They don't have. So we talk about there's influence,
right,
and authority,
sure,
and responsibility. so yes, they can certainly influence, but if ultimately product development and the executive team decide that a product is going to be added to the line, then their responsibility at that point becomes selling it to the best of their ability.
Get creative and sell this thing.
Exactly.
So you get the idea and it gets through all the hoops. And now do you actually go to the drawing board, or do you have people who do that for you?
Both. So engineering drawings are done by, I have a designer.
But you're not sitting there like at a computer-aided drafting table thing.
No.
That's
so they'll do the CAD, and then I also have some outside resources that I will employ that have really good technical skills. Some that have really good human form and function skills. So if I needed something extra ergonomic or with multiple moving parts, then I would rely on them. I usually go to them with the gestalt, the big idea,
right,
something that I've kind of pencil sketched on a notepad.
Sure.
And then they'll develop from there and figure out how to.
So from the cocktail napkin to them, basically, in a lot of ways.
With a discussion.
So how long just, and I know everything's different, but how long does it percolate with you? How long do you sit with it before you present it to anybody else?
It varies widely. So sometimes it's days, and sometimes it could be months where I have a concept in my head and I'm trying to work it out. How would it work, or could it work? And I've got a few ideas that I've had in my head for years and still haven't been able to execute.
See, this is why I wanted to have Brian on here, because most of the listeners to the show are more accustomed to talking about writing. Mm-hmm. But this is like writing to me, because I can have a short story that I can put out and I can just crank it out in a couple of days. It just comes out of me. I don't know where it comes from, and it does well. I have a short story that won a lot of awards, Obsidian, that came out of me in just a few days.
Right.
Won. And then there's other stuff that percolates in the back of my mind forever, and I struggle to get it out because I can't quite get in that groove. Do you have the same?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you have a character, but you don't have the story for the character.
Many people say in my books that I have great characters in search of a good story. So, yeah.
So yes, and sometimes there are these holy grail kind of problems in the industry that if technology or materials catch up, then everyone wants to solve those problems.
Oh, that's interesting.
Plastics that feel like ceramic.
Right.
Or are oven safe, and there are some that are ovenable, but they have inherent problems with staining or scratching, or so
durability.
Right. Finding those, keeping those in the back of my head for when technology catches up.
Yeah. Now you this is also interesting though. For another company, I think, and we don't have to go into what it was, but you have a patent, or you're a partial patent holder?
I do, yeah. I was on a group that designed patent for an insulated food pan transport device.
And we laughed, but it's got to be done, or people will steal it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And there's some unique features about the product, and some of it's was the look and the design of it, but there's a food safety element as well when you talk about transporting food. If you're in catering or another environment where you transport food from the kitchen to where it's being served,
right,
that's going to take longer than a couple of minutes, then it's important to help maintain the food quality and the food safety by maintaining the temperature.
It gets back to the French fries again.
Exactly.
Right? Because if they sit too long. We had a great burger last night, and you tried them too, right? The fries. Mm-hmm. The burger was delicious. The fries were good for about the first minute, but then they got soggy really fast, and then it was like I ate them because I was hungry, but right, that kind of
food quality is of
huge.
critical importance when you're fighting for repeat customers,
right?
Instead of having to woo new customers all the time.
Yeah, that's way more expensive to woo new customers.
Yeah. So to have something good, consistent, quality food is very important.
So we talked about your ideation, and then the process as it works its way through the company. So when the designs are complete and all that stuff, and I assume you don't patent every product you do.
No,
either.
It's very rare because it's pretty expensive to protect.
And most of your stuff's fairly ubiquitous. It's just kind of a spin on what everybody's doing to a degree.
Yeah. I'll call it a Me Too Plus or Me Too Plus Plus.
Nice.
Not true innovation.
Right.
There's very little. There's some out there, but there's very little what I would consider true innovation.
So typically you get the design, it's all approved. Generally manufactured off continent somewhere else. Is it China a lot, or is it?
Well, with this current manufacturer, it's probably a 70-30, 30% manufactured somewhere in the U.S.
Great.
With contract manufacturers, and then 70% made elsewhere.
Is there now, of course, these are manufacturers. They take the designs and they make it. So it's not like you have to sell them on the product. But is there ever any cultural misunderstanding, just in general, about this kind of thing?
It depends on how complex the design is. If I'm asking a manufacturer vendor to design something for me from scratch, and I give them an idea and they have to put it together for me, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation and challenges and a lot of back and forth. I call it playing Find a Rock, where you tell them, hey, go find a rock, and they bring back a rock, and I go, oh yeah, that is a rock, but I wanted a big rock. And then they go, bring me a big rock, and I go, this is a smooth one. I kind of wanted something kind of jaggedy. And then they give me a jaggedy rock, and I go, well, this one's gray. I really wanted something reddish. That's the kind of back and forth. And then if you have, at a minimum, you've got 1 to 2 days between most correspondence just because of the time difference. I will, Skype call them regularly if on certain projects. But then, if a product's being sent back and forth, you're talking, it could be 10 days to 2 weeks,
right,
for each time. So, with a product development process, always trying to launch as fast as possible from the time we decide to move forward with a project. It slows things down. It just gums up the work. So the key is design and develop as much as you can, and then hand it off to them.
And then,
don't ask them to
interpret
for much interpretation.
Yeah, because it's cultural too. I mean, it's like I could say to you, hey, like I already did earlier, right? I could say, like Red Robin. Well, that might not mean anything to somebody over there.
Correct. They've never eaten at a Red Robin. They just think of a bird if they looked it up or did a Google Translate. So,
right, they would. They would just say, like a bird. So then they're drawing a jaggedy...
a hamburger that looks like a bird.
Yeah, with a jaggedy rock on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's fascinating to me. I mean, it's I don't think... See, just all of these intricate details onto, and here I'll oversimplify, all of these decisions and all this thought that goes into making something that is so ubiquitous at one point you don't even really notice it. You do, but you don't. You notice it in the sense that, the Better Burger thing really presents my meal well and makes me feel like spending $20 on a burger and fries. But you don't think about what goes into making that. I bet some people look at that and go, that's just playing off of the old fast food kind of packaging, but they made it out of steel. Okay, but that's way more than that.
It is, or it can be, if you do it right.
If you do it right, if you do it wrong.
Yeah. So the other thing that struck me is I also, in my creative process, and I'm sure you do the same, I find time to think and be bored. So in the office every day, weather permitting, I will spend half an hour outside. And I literally, I sit on the grass on the side of a hill. I take my shoes off. I ground myself, and I don't know if grounding is a
No.
it's a real thing.
It's a real
I don't
thing,
know
yeah.
if it works. It works in my
Yeah.
in my brain, and I just watch. There's a a small lake adjacent to the building, and just think.
And feed the ducks.
Exactly, or the geese, and or watch the herons, or the fish swimming around in there. But that helps me. I think being disconnected from the Pavlovian dinging of the emails coming in, and just the constant interruptions and interactions, which I treasure the interactions, but I also need, as part of my creative process, to get away and just think a little.
Anybody ever said anything to you about it?
Most people are. Everyone's. Sometimes they'll see me with my shoes off, and they kind of make fun of me. But for the most part, very very supportive, because the proof is in the pudding. If we get results, we're developing unique products that answer industry needs. Then that's what it's all about.
I happen to agree. There's a couple of things people who listen to this show and look at my social media know is that I work out every day, but also one thing I do a couple of times a week is I do a little bit of forest bathing. There's a woods with trails near my house. It's about a 1.5 mile walk. You can hear a little bit of highway, but not much, especially when everything's in bloom like this time of year. And that really helps me, get away. As you said, the Pavlovian ding of the email and the phone ringing and people coming by, well-meaning people who chickadee-chack and want to talk to you about stuff. So that's an interesting part of your process. So your job, you mentioned how you're at the office and you're in Chicago area, right?
Correct.
But you have to travel a fair amount for this job, or somewhat?
Less. Throughout my career, I've traveled. Gone. My travel has gone up and down. I will try to get to. There's a large show in Europe called Ambiente, which is home and housewares focused, but there are some great trend spotting opportunities. And then I try to go to Asia at least once a year, but usually a couple times.
Like Hong Kong or?
Hong Kong, and then there's a large show in Guangzhou that's twice a year. And then if there are vendors elsewhere throughout the country, most of the vendors that I deal with in China are in that southern area, but some are in the up in the northwest. So if they're making glass, cast iron, wood products, a lot of that comes from further north in the country, and then most of the injection molding, plastics manufacturing, assembly, light assembly, that type of stuff tends to happen in the ports closer, into the south.
You also served in the U.S. military.
Yes,
you were an officer in the military. And what I want to know about that is, and you did that after graduate school?
I did.
Yeah, you were unusual. You were the old man, weren't you? Yeah.
I was. Yeah.
But here's what I want to ask about that. You were in the service, was it 6 years, something like that?
More like 4.
4. And you worked for, you jumped out of airplanes and things like that, but you also worked in an area that took care of, what corps were you in?
I was an adjutant general.
Adjutant General Corps.
Yes.
And that was taking care of people. And was there any creative, see where I'm coming with this finally. Was there any creative problem solving in the military that you could do or wanted to do and frustrated you that you put into practice now?
Yes. Well, so you have to get into the Wayback Machine. This was in the 90s. So there weren't cell phones then, or there were probably car phones.
They were like the Lethal Weapon one. Remember that?
Yes.
Riggs and Murtaugh.
They're on a deployment. There was not the kind of technology that we have today. So one of the biggest challenges that the military faces, or did when I was there, is that it was explained once that you have moments of terror, a lifetime of boredom interrupted with moments of terror, sheer terror, and that's what most infantry people were like. So you would go out, and you were in this scary environment, and then you would spend days doing absolutely nothing. So one of my roles was finding ways to keep them entertained. So morale, welfare, and recreation fell under the purview of my department. Postal fell under my department, and so it was critically important to make sure that the mail got there. And so all of those any soldier packages and letters.
Oh yeah, like they would do back home for, like on MASH, mail call was like a huge deal, right?
Correct.
That's not a joke.
Correct.
They were looking forward to this.
It is changing a little bit again with the easy access to easier access to a cell phone and international plan. When I was stationed in Germany, it was 50 cents to $1 per minute to for a phone call from landline to landline. And so, most soldiers couldn't do that, at least couldn't do it regularly.
Right.
And so keeping them entertained and keeping them out of trouble was a very important part of my job, and it required a lot of creativity.
Right.
And thankfully, the post-Vietnam military did appreciate the soldiers and did invest in things to help them along.
But was creativity welcomed?
To a degree, I think it's back to know your playground. So I had to work within both the financial constraints and the exercise constraints of my department.
Yeah. So, did that go find a rock in a way too? Did you have to work for for generals and colonels and majors who perhaps maybe were older and didn't quite have as good an understanding of the people you were serving as
there were some at that time most of the higher ranking folks were Vietnam vets.
Okay.
So the tough it out mentality, just figure it out. You're a grunt, so you're going to be bored. Yep, I was bored when I was in Vietnam. You'll figure it out.
Right.
Versus, I think there were also a large group of those folks that came out of Vietnam saying, we don't want soldiers to have to go through the same things that we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want, we want to avoid alcoholism and
drug use
and addiction in our ranks because we know what effect that has on the unit.
Yeah, the deprivations are part of the deal, but if there's a way to ameliorate that, why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and it's funny, and it's not really our discussion, but nowadays with cell phones and things, I wonder if there's more problems though, because to some degree, because you've got these young kids serving in infantry who've got a cell phone, and maybe they're, we're going to do maneuvers somewhere tomorrow, and maybe that's not something that people should know about. I'm just I'm sure there are people taking cell phone videos and things that they shouldn't because it's classified. Right.
But there's, I'm certain, also distracted soldiers have got to be a problem.
Yeah.
Where you're supposed to be on watch, looking out for a potential threat,
right,
and you're scrolling through the social media feed.
Yeah. So let's get back to what you're doing now. Speaking of threats, how competitive is your business? Is it a really?
I wouldn't call it cutthroat, but you have some cutlery. There is some healthy competition. The number of categories that my company competes in, each one of those categories could have 3 or 4 major competitors. And then there's also a secondary threat. Some of our larger customers are direct importing products. So our customers have become our pseudo competitors in some environments as well.
That's interesting.
So it's just channel compression, which is not unusual for a mature industry, but it certainly is a threat to a company like ours.
Any bold predictions on the food industry or on the restaurant industry?
A bold prediction, I would say with automation, I think the back of the house is going to change pretty dramatically in the next, say, 10 to 15 years.
So fewer employees?
Fewer employees. I mean, I could potentially see almost like a lights out kitchen where it's fully automated. There's at Dodger Stadium, there's a robot called Flippy who makes hamburgers, and they're always perfect.
Can I get him on the show?
Maybe. So it's a robotic arm. It places the burger. It flips. It's not just based on timing. It has a built-in laser digital thermometer, so it makes sure that the product is safe, not just visually looks fully cooked.
Right.
It is fully cooked, and it's perfect every time.
Wow.
So there's a company that's developing, a company called Moley, Moley, that is developing a fully autonomous kitchen. It's, just very similar to what you see on Star Trek, where you
the replicator thing?
There's a company called Moley who's developing fully autonomous kitchens that will have a library of menu items that are pre-programmed, and it can chop, cook, fully prepare, and even self-clean after the meal. So the impact that if that becomes affordable, and I could eat back to Red Robin, Red Robin hamburger in my house.
Oh my, really?
Then what would be the reason to go to a restaurant?
Wow.
It could change pretty dramatic. Some of the real value of a restaurant is the convenience of it.
It's a convenience, but there's also the social side.
Absolutely.
People are always going to go to restaurants.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I love about the industry is that people rarely go to a restaurant to be depressed. They're usually celebrating something. It's a birthday. It's a thank God I didn't have to cook tonight. It's a whatever that is. It's typically a celebratory experience,
right?
That they get to go out to eat.
Any big top secret thing you're working on? You can tell us anything about? Of course not. No. Of course not. But you're always working on something, aren't you?
I am. So if you think of the key things that I'm always looking at, it's safety related. So can we make the food safer? Consistency. So can you control the portions? Can you control dosing of whatever condiments, sides, etc., so that it's the same every time. It's very predictable, and can you make it look better, more visually appealing, so that it positively affects the overall dining experience?
Well, you obviously do it very well. Is there any, in closing, anything we missed? But I have a question, if nothing else.
Sure.
And, is there one thing you would like people to know or wish people knew about what you do? And there may not be. You may be like, look, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Just lift up your plates. I don't know. What do you think?
About the industry,
or about what you do, or about the dining experience, perhaps.
I think what I think I may have mentioned it earlier in the cast, but my goal is to be as invisible as possible.
Right.
So if you notice it, then I probably am not doing it completely right.
Yeah.
So because the focus should always be on the food. But if I create a vertical food presentation and you go, yeah, the fries are facing me and sticking up instead of that's what you should notice, not the vessel that it's in. You should say, "Oh, this looks beautiful. It's appetizing. It's the color." That's what I want you to see. Or, "Hey, I didn't get food poisoning." Woohoo! Then that means I've done my job right. And so it's if you notice too much, then I'm not doing my job.
That's just back to comparison with what I do. If I write something that takes you out of the story, if I write something trying to be clever and you're going, "Oh, look what he did here," okay, which I've done, because I have a tendency to inject little Easter eggs into a story that can distract from the story. But then I have kind of failed you because I pulled you out of the story, and then you have to kind of get back into the story. So I love that. I love that thing there. So, I frequently get a question from readers, "Hey, Alex, did you see so-and-so's book, or did you read that, or did you see that movie? Do you wish you thought of that?" And I'm like, "No, of course not." But of course, in my heart of hearts, I'm eating my heart out going, "Yeah, I wish I thought of that freaking $1 million idea." What about you? Is there ever like a product or an idea that you wish you had created?
So there's one I kind of kick myself about, because it's a lot of the best solutions are simple ones. We talked to color coding. A company called Rubbermaid, I'm sure you've heard of it.
Doesn't ring a bell.
So they have a commercial food service products division.
Right.
And they developed a trash can, and the trash can's been around for a very long time with very little innovation.
Right.
I mean, the first innovation was changing from tin to plastic, which made it a lot more durable. But after that, it basically remained unchanged.
Right.
They developed a can with side vents. So basically a vertical vent that runs down the side. And in a commercial kitchen, you have a lot of wet product because you're removing food, and so the can liner sealing against the can is a huge problem, because the amount of lifting force it takes to pull the can.
I used to work in fast food. I remember this.
It's horrible, and strain and back related injuries is a huge problem in the industry. Well, they created a venting system that reduces, it breaks that seal between the liner and the can, and reduces the lifting force required to lift it out by about 40%.
That's brilliant.
And so simple, and it is actually something that your listeners can do at home. If you can get like a PVC pipe. Mm-hmm. Cut it at an angle so that air can travel through it, and put it in the can before you put a can liner in. It'll break that seal. So you can do that at home, or you can buy the Rubbermaid can if you can find it, although most of them are commercial sizes, so not real functional in a kitchen. But
it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it was, again, a very simple idea, but the result was it was really good.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I worked at Chick-fil-A, and I remember those massive, the big square cans, and we would, the lift that was required, and we had some particularly young women who, high school age, they just didn't have the upper body strength to even get a full bag out of the can, and I'd have to go help, or and then so that would have been a really great thing to have.
Yeah. And this was patented, I think, within the last 10 years or so.
See, but that's the thing. Your mind is open to these things. Like, you'll see this, something like this down the road, I'm sure, and you'll solve that problem.
Exactly. That's my hope. I've got a couple of things
percolating,
milling about in there, and I love that show Connections. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So I've got a couple of those rattling around in my head now.
That's why we need people like you, who are thinking at things from a different angle, and kind of like that design. You're relieving some pressure to make our lives a little better, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I have so enjoyed learning more about what you do, and I hope you listeners have as well. But Brian Hutton, thank you for being on MGO.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's great.
We can get together again sometime.
I would like that very much. And listeners, I appreciate you tuning in here, and I'd appreciate it if you'd tell other folks about this, especially if you enjoyed this kind of fascinating look behind the curtain of creativity in areas that you might not expect to find it. And we're going to be doing a lot more of that on Mysterious Goings On as we continue. But as ever, the clock is ticking, and I have some writing to do, and you have some reading to do. I think you know what that means. You can find out more at pilotscross.com, Pilates cross.com, or you can find all of my books on Amazon.com in ebook, paperback, and in one case, well, two cases, audiobooks. But anyway, I'm J. Alexander Greenwood. You can call me Al. This was Brian Hutton, our guest, and you've been listening to Mysterious Goings On. Until next time, keep reading.
It's a great time to get a great deal on a new car when you get approved for an auto loan from PenFed. Our Powered by True Car rates are as low as 1.39% APR on new vehicles. Finance for a longer term to lower your monthly bill. Plus, take up to 60 days to schedule your first payment. Join PenFed, and together we'll keep you moving forward. Anyone can apply. Visit penfed.org/auto or call 1-800-247-5626. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA. From regular expenses to occasional splurges, there's a lot to buy. Why not get cash back every time you spend? With the PenFed Power Cash Rewards Card, you get cash back on every purchase. That's everywhere, every time you use it. You can even earn a $100 statement credit when you spend $1,500 in the first 90 days. Visit penfed.org/powercash to apply. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.